Hey, well, I was going to do a morning ramblings, but apparently it's afternoon tide. So I says, well, do some back porch sitting, but my dog won't let me sit down and record. So, it seems that we are at an impasse here. So this is going to be a rendition of Morning Ramblings, Refried Beans. Subject of the video is flying by the seat of our pants. So, stay tuned. All right. So, I want to point out something my dad said when I was probably about, shucks, I don't know, about 18, 19. And before that, once when I was about 8 years old, I was a youngin' and we were out on a fishing trip and we were just kind of shooting shit. But, he reiterated it when I was about 19. And it was an important piece of adulting that I think we all need to understand. I asked my daddy, Dad, how do you know? How do you know that this is the right play? How do you know this is the right this, that, or the other? How do you know this is going to be what the case is? Situationally speaking, we were fishing and talking about, if the fish are here or there or whatnot. At least when I was 8 years old. And then again, when I was 19, it was something else about, this is about women, funny enough, but, but when we was talking about fishing, he understood back then, my son's a little different, kind of like I was when I was his age, just a little weird. Want to thank you for watching me go far. But yeah, he realized it back then. I'm just a little different, and probably recognized a lot of himself and the way that he had to deal with life growing up in me, and just because of how he was dealt hand of cards he was dealt, that's all he knew what to handle and he knew how to do things. And being that he was high functioning autistic, kind of like me, he was constantly both omnipresent and present, and also prescient. The mind was constantly going. He was also able to look at it from the outside as well as the inside and see all angles all at once, which is something that's not very common when it comes to people who are autistic. Okay, a little pointer I want to make there. Not everybody can do that. Some people don't have those kinds of, they don't have prescience, meaning that they can understand what could happen. They only have the mindset of can happen. What can happen, and I want to see, so I can know. So not having that prescience, they don't understand particular safety measures. And this is why my dad was telling me about, when we were fishing, about where to go fish and how to get there, and which trail to take. And at the time, my brain was so scattered just because of all the drugs they had me on, trying to figure out what the fuck is wrong with my head. And I'm just telling you, there's nothing wrong with my head. I'm just a little bit weird. What? Anyways, he says, go down into the pier, into the bridge here, because we was on the river bridge across Ogden River that went between Rainbow and I believe that's is that North Ogden? Rainbow, yeah, we'll just call it North Ogden, Old Ogden. Because I still lived in Old Ogden too, up on the west side, but on the west bench. But North Ogden's like the real old Ogden. And that's where, friends of ours lived, and also where my dad's best friend in the world, who I called Uncle Jack, who is literally my uncle growing up, because he was the only person present, like really present, other than my mom and Aunt Holly and Uncle Don and Aunt Viv. And like I said, we called them uncles and aunts. They were really just extremely close family friends. And when I say extremely close family friends, I mean, like, for those of you that understand biker culture, that's what I mean. Uncle Jack, Aunt Viv, Uncle Don. That's what I mean. That kind of. These are the kind of people who would run into a burning building to save your life, because they were that close to you. No physical relation, no blood kin relation, but these people would literally run into a burning building to save your life. That's what I mean by uncle, aunt on this particular, okay? So, anyways, this is where those folks at the time lived. I don't know where now, because it's just been so long. It's been decades. I'm 30. I'm 39 now. This happened when I was like 8 years old. So it was about 31 years ago. Think about that. That's a long ass time. So anyways, we're just down there fishing, and I asked my dad, well, how do you know that that's the right route to take, and that's that's the hole? And he just goes, son, I don't know shit. I don't know shit. Because he knew that if I would call him out as a liar, just because, well, you didn't say the exact this, that, and the others. Mind you, this is why I'm kind of anal about facts and fictions and whatnot, and this and that and betweens and whatnot. Metaphorical and directly observable physical, sort of things. Anyways, so he tells me to go down and go fish on the bank right there, and because he knows that there's going to probably be big fish there, a high probability. Now, he doesn't say it as it's a high probability. He says, that's, if I was a fish, that's where I'd be. All right? Because he's thinking like the fish. He's thinking omnipresently. Do you understand now what I mean by present, omnipresent, and prescient? Three things that are not very common amongst the so-called autistic community, but when it's the high-functioning sort of folks, that's actually something that you can kind of look towards and see. Like, no, yeah, he's weird, but he also knows better. That's stupid. That's dangerous. That's asking for trouble. That's looking for a problem. This is how I was raised. So, that being taught prescience the reason why go around the long way instead of trying to cross the short way was because it was a safer route, and he knew that. For my little stubby legs at the time, as I says. So now you understand prescience, omnipresence, and presence. All three were in this particular. And at the same time, this is what we call, knowing what you're doing. Okay, this is the facade of knowing what you're doing. And when I asked him about it, I don't know shit, son. I'm flying by the seat of my pants here. This is the most honest thing he said to me at that point. All right. And then he says, I'm just doing the best that I can with what I have and the time that I've got it in. If you learn anything from me, learn this. Learn to do the best that you can with what you've got. If you look down there, boy, there's a trail that leads down on that side. Now look at the other side of the river over there. It's just a little tiny, basically a gully patch. And just a wash, basically what most people call a wash. This is the Ogden River, mind you. It's a very powerful river in some places. But in this little spot, it's just a trickle. It's literally just a trickle. They're just moving along. You could run faster than the water flows down that portion of the river. All right. And this little fishing bridge has a little tiny trail that goes right down the side next to it. But in order to get to that trail, you have to go walk all the way out down the block and around, because there's a huge ass hedgerow that goes all the way down there. I don't know if it's there anymore, but it used to be a huge ass hedgerow, went all the way down the block, and you had to walk all the way around it. This is a big deal for somebody who's an 8-year-old kid in Ogden in the 90s. All right. With nothing but a fishing pole and a little fillet knife. That's all I was allowed to have at the time. I'm a little kid, right? I'm not allowed to carry a gun. Not allowed to have none of that because the laws had just come into play about how you can't have a shotgun till the age of 12 and only under adult supervision while in the action of hunting, while engaged in hunting. And then it changed over to 16. They did that bullshit and you just kept on rolling it. This is in Ogden, Utah. This is, they changed it to 16 after I left. But they had changed it to 12 right before I turned 8. And me and my dad had this agreement, I'm not buying you a shotgun. I'm not getting into the whole giving you a shotgun or giving you a rifle or any of that out, to go hunting with till you're about 8 years old. That's when my daddy gave me my BB gun, and it was because he couldn't get me a shotgun. But same for him, that's when his daddy got him his first 22. And his first 20 gauge shotgun was when he was 8 years old. And he'd carry that 20 gauge shotgun through Gulfport, Mississippi, through the back in the swamps, going and popping swamp donkey rabbits, just big old swamp rabbits out the freaking swamps with that 22 or that shotgun every day after school so they'd have a rabbit for the pot for supper. Now, my age, I couldn't get a gun, so I'm not able to defend myself adequately against any of the wildlife in Utah. Fucking raccoons, for fuck's sake. But then on top of that, mind you, there's also lots of not too great people. This is why being associated with the people that we were kind of protected me a little bit from too bad of influence, we'll say. And so I thank those gentlemen for that. That's why I'm really big on this. That man's my uncle. Blood relation, blood kin or not. Don't give a fuck. So, anyways, beyond that, back to the point of the matter I was trying to say is, like I said, morning ramblings, refried beans sort of thing. So he tells me how to get down to the bank, and, I do exactly what he tells me to, all right? Carrying the little fishing knife right on my front of my hip, ready to go if I have to, just, tuned up to the nines. And I get around the other side, and I get down there, and I'm fishing. I'm just not catching nothing. Right? Not catching a damn thing. So my dad does the same thing. He grabs all the gear up, and he walks around, all the way around, comes down. We're sitting there fishing next to each other. He's like, all right, this ain't working. So he throws on a different lure. Casts it out, instantaneously hooks a big old brook trout. And he says, see, I told you they were down here. So it looks like, somebody knows what they're doing. They don't know exactly if it's going to be that outcome, but they're pretty certain of it. And that's why it looks like adults know what we're doing. Newsflash. As my daddy said, we are all flying by the seat of our pants, trying to do the best that we can with what we got. Are all trying to build better. And that is the actual definition of maturity. Knowing that you don't know shit. Doing the best you can with it. With what you do know. Trying to survive life. Because life is a real experience. All this shit on the interwebs, that's not real. That's the 5-10 minutes you see of us doing shit. What's real? Oh, he's sitting right there. That's what's real. Ah, that's my Honda. Like, I don't want to be on camera today, Dad. Get this out of here. All right. So you understand what I'm saying here. Go out and live real life. Just remember, you're flying by the seat of your pants. It might behoove you to have a sidearm. Just says. Something that my dad taught me also. That particular saying, flying by the seat of my pants, comes from parachutists in World War II. Guys who jumping out of planes, whether they were pilots or they were airborne, what have you. That a lot of them, they were going on full instinct. They were living literally on instinct and doing the best that they could with what they had. Now, I want you to think about one particular instance. A gentleman that was shot down over the jungles of Japan. Parachuting in, Zeros are coming in, and they're shooting at him and, another feller who's parachuting in. This guy pulls out his 45, and all pilots were issued a 45, Colt 45, or a 38 if they chose the 38. But it was more of a choice thing if they carried the 38. Most of them were issued, government issue, 45 ACP, 1911. And he pulls out this 1911, and he's tracking as he's floating down through the air. he's tracking this Zero coming in, trying to shoot him out of the sky. And he pops off a good couple of rounds. And that plane goes right down underneath him. He'd shot the pilot. Because the pilot was trying to still kill him. And he's floating down with that parachute. He was literally flying by the seat of his pants and had to use his self-defense as an individual who was a sitting fucking duck. Now, I want you to think on that while you're out there and about. Yeah, so-called, we're not at war. Yes, we are. Every time you walk out that front door, hell, every time you're inside your house, you are at war. The difference is what kind of war. Pay attention to that. What kind of war? Remember, you're flying by the seat of your pants, so you got to make a decision in the moment. It's probably best if you get some practice. This is what I mean by when I went out and about and I lived life and I learned and I got into it and I lived homeless for a while. And I lived out in the woods and in the boonies, just me, just alone. Me and a fucking 22 rifle. That was it. I had just a 22 rifle. Nothing else. Some water bottles that I'd scavenged. Couple of pots and pans that my dad lent me. I was living hard. I literally ate peanut butter for almost 6 months and almost straight. Nowadays, peanut butter is like a once in a blue moon sort of thing, and just like, fuck it, I don't feel like doing anything more than that. Peanut butter on a tortilla, roll it up, and it's good. Quite literally. That's it, you know. Poor man's churro. Anyways, so, and like I said, you're just flying by the seat of your pants. By its tightest definition, while still being loose enough to pertain to exactly what you're doing at the time. Remember that. You don't know what's coming. What you do know is you're still breathing. So you got one more thing you can do. Oh, and don't forget to breathe. Y'all be good. It's been Yo Guardsman on, man. Motherfuckers. I'm out.